it before I close it. I've not gone into much detail on the wiring because I think it's better for people when building something like this that they do their own research, and they need to learn a little bit about how all the components work for themselves to really understand what's going on. But I will, even though I'm saying that, I will go through it quickly and show you basically some of the stuff I've done. Obviously, the position of the components is, it needs to be, you need to match this. This obviously goes on to the other side, and the video switcher sits them in this area here where there's a bit of free space. On the Mini OSD, I've actually taken off the pins and turned them round, so that, because before the plugs were pointing out, and I didn't want that, I wanted them to point in, so I basically unsoldered them, turned them around and soldered them back in. Obviously that is my power for my power and video signal going to the video switcher, and that will then be plugged into my transmitter, which is going to eventually sit there after. This is the cable for a GoPro, which is obviously plugged into the switcher. And the power lead for that I've not connected yet because I'm going to use the power from the GoPro. But at a later stage I could eventually connect that to power, and then I could have the GoPro being powered by the main battery if I wanted to. My FPV camera has been wired in as well. The cable's down here ready to be plugged in. The cable goes through the Mini OSD to the video switcher, and the power goes straight into the power filter. Another thing I did on the RG Pilot itself, it's quite hard to see there, but you would get these cables in with the controller itself. I think you get 5, and I want to use the channel 6 tuning function, to have the tuning function on a switch or on a knob on my transmitter. So basically what I did is I've only used 3 of these cables. One I plugged in with all 3 wires connected how they should be, with ground, plus and signal. The other one I've got all 3 on signal, and the other one I cut one wire off, and I've got them 2 on signal as well. I will give you a close-up photo of that to show you. I'll give you a close-up photo of all of this at the end of the video to show you, to give you a bit more detail, because obviously you can't really see a lot on the video. Like I say, this is on Velcro, so that I can remove it, unplug this, turn it like that, and I can plug in my controller, my FTDI controller from the front to program it. And it just sits in there nicely like that. That's also on Velcro, purely because I wanted that little bit of play. There is a little bit of compression on this when you close the lid, when you close the top frame, because of all the wires. The wires on the speed controllers. You could shorten them if you wanted to, and if you have the right tools. At the minute I don't have the right tools, but I'm probably going to end up shortening these wires because there's a lot of excess wire in there, which is just taking up space, and every bit of contact that is going through the top plate to the controller is obviously going to be transmitting vibrations, which is not good. So it might be a good idea to get rid of them. I've got the Mini OSD, the cable. Obviously one end plugs into the Mini OSD. The other end I've got plugged into the top corner of the Hobby King Pilot, and the other, you get on the cable another plug here. I've just rolled that up and I'm putting that in there like that, out of the way. If I wanted to add a telemetry module at a later date, I can just unclip that, and I've got enough space on the top here to mount a module. Another thing to note here is these 2 cables here. That is the 8 volts, 8.2 volts for the gimbal, and that is the plug for the gimbal. I'm going to leave these cables at the side here, so that when I'm testing and programming and whatnot, I don't have to have my gimbal on balanced, because that obviously then won't be getting power. Really now all that's left to do is to reconnect the gimbal motors to the controller, close it up, make sure all your wires are routed as they should be, because obviously this wire here, as I close it, I need to pull it through, and like that. The GoPro wire needs to come out the front, and the camera wire needs to come out the back. These need to be there. You just have to basically go through it and make sure all your wires are sitting as they should be, and then go and close this down, making sure that, like that there's no wires between the arms and the frame that are going to get squashed. And once you've done that, you can then reinstall this plug, which you can easily do from the front. You don't need to do that. Install the FPV camera, the video transmitter on the side here, connect it all up, and that's really about it. Obviously the receiver needs to go on as well, receiver of your choice. I'm going to be using this one here from FreeSky. Obviously, as I've shown you in the parts list. The good thing about these receivers is you don't need to worry about which channel goes into which channel on the Hobby King Pilot, because they're assignable. On the Tyrannus I can just say I want channel 1 to be the throttle, channel 2 to be the aileron, and it just works. Whereas if you've got a Futaba or a JR, for example, you might have to make note of exactly which pin goes to which wire goes to which pin on the board, and plug them in correctly into your receiver. Obviously, on the top here we've got the 3 wires coming from the controller itself, the Hobby King Pilot. I've got one for the video switcher, and I've got one for the pitch of the gimbal to control that, and that's it. Right, I'm just going to talk you through quickly installing the receiver. Basically, because I'm using a FreeSky receiver, I don't need to worry about which pins go into which plug goes into which port on here. Basically, that thing is attached with double-sided tape. These are attached with double-sided tape as well. The one on the back here I've attached with a tie wrap as well, just to make sure it's securely in place. I always, on my antennas, I try to mount them 90 degrees from each other, because they're obviously, because of diversity, gives you a better signal and gives you less chance of radio loss. And that's it for the receiver really. You're obviously going to want to plug it in and then set it up, bind it with your transmitter. In my case it's Tyrannus. Right, for the video transmitter, basically I left this antenna on for my testing, because if you turn these on without an antenna on, they can they get damaged basically. I'm going to put my clover leaf on right now. You're going to want to plug in your plug. Obviously we wired that in before. One thing to note with these transmitters is the heat shrink is over everything. You're going to need to cut out where the plug goes, and cut out as well where the switches are. And on the High Model website where you buy this from, there is a diagram on how to set what switches need to be in what position to select your channel, your video channel, and you're going to need to set that. You're going to need to match that up to your goggles or monitor to get your video signal. Right, for the propellers, basically what I've done is I balanced them. Balancing propellers is one of the most important things to do with a multi-rotor, because obviously the unbalanced propellers are going to be making vibrations. Basically, I sanded the underneath of one side, the heavy side, and then I balanced the hub as well. There are links to videos below this video on how to do that, how to balance props. Follow them videos, but make sure your props are balanced when you put them on. But when you do your programming, you're going to want to take your props off. Alright, and that's about it for the hardware side of it. We're about done with the build is actually completed now, to the stage that it needs to be basically just needs to be programmed. We're going to plug it into the computer now and get the firmware updated onto it. I will show you before I do that what actually happens when you plug the battery in. At the minute there's no firmware on it, but you can see the lights will light up, and the speed controllers will beep and whatnot. But I'll show you that. The GPS light comes on and the light on the Mini OSD comes on. The arm lights will light up in a minute, like that, and they will just flash away. They're obviously not getting any information at the minute. The speed controller's not getting any information, that's why they're beeping as well, and my receiver's not been bound. But that's basically how it If you plug it in and you don't get this reaction, then you've probably wired in something wrong, and you should go back and check everything. Right, we're now going to go and plug it into the computer and get the firmware updated onto it and get it in the air.